The first flicker of the gas lamp threw his shadow, long and distorted, against the damp stone walls. Rain lashed at the single iron-barred window of the cell, each drop a hammer blow against the suffocating silence. He hadn't spoken a word in 364 days. Tomorrow would mark a year since they had dragged him from his life, from the noise and the fury of the world he had once commanded, and thrown him into this forgotten pit. They thought they were breaking him. They believed that by stripping him of his voice, his influence, his very presence, they were rendering him powerless. He let them believe it. He let them watch through the small grate in the iron door, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and contempt. He saw the guards whisper their words like ghosts in the corridor. "He's lost it," one would say. "The silence has eaten him alive." Little did they know the silence was not his prison. It was his forge. They had taken everything from him. His name, once a roar in the halls of power, was now a forgotten echo. His wealth, once a torrent that could bend the will of nations, was now scattered to the winds, seized by the very men who now held the keys to his cage. His allies, those who had sworn fealty and brotherhood, had scattered like rats from a sinking ship, their loyalty as fleeting as the morning mist. All that remained was the silence. And in that silence, he had discovered a power far greater than any he had ever wielded. It was a power that did not need to be spoken to be felt. A power that grew not in the clamor of the world, but in the stillness of a man who had been stripped of everything and found that he was still whole. He had learned to listen, not to the guards' footsteps or the rats scurrying in the walls, but to the symphony of his own thoughts. He had learned to dissect his fears, to starve his weaknesses, to forge his will into a weapon of tempered steel. He had watched as the world outside his cell descended into the chaos he had once orchestrated. But this time, without his hand to guide it, it was a chaos that consumed itself. The very men who had imprisoned him were now at each other's throats, their alliances crumbling, their empires built on sand washing away with the tide of their own greed. They had created a vacuum, and they were too blind to see what was filling it. His absence had become a presence, his silence a roar. The less he said, the more they wondered. The less they saw of him, the more they feared the man he was becoming in the darkness. They had intended to erase him, but instead they had made him a legend, a ghost story whispered in the corridors of power. The Silent King, they had started to call him. The man who ruled from a forgotten cell, his influence a phantom that haunted their every decision. And as the first light of the 365th day began to creep through the iron bars, he knew his time was coming. The door would open, not because he had broken, but because they had. They would come to him, not as captors, but as supplicants. They would beg for the words he had so long withheld, and he would grant them their wish. But the voice that would emerge from the silence would not be the one they remembered. It would be the voice of a man reborn in the crucible of his own absence, a voice that would not just command, but conquer. Have you ever felt like you're shouting into the void, that your efforts, your words, your very presence goes unnoticed? Do you strive for recognition, for a seat at the table, only to be met with indifference? We live in a world that screams for attention, a world of noise, of constant broadcasting, of relentless self-promotion. We are told that to be powerful, we must be loud. To be influential, we must be seen. But what if the opposite is true? What if the greatest power lies not in what you say, but in what you don't? What if your absence could command more respect than your presence ever could? This is the paradox of the Silent King, the ascension that begins when you embrace the power of your own silence. This is not a lesson for the faint of heart. This is a journey into the heart of a power that is as terrifying as it is transformative. It is the power to command a room without uttering a single word. The power to make your absence felt more acutely than your presence ever was. It is the power to become the architect of your own legend, to have your name whispered in rooms you have never entered. It is the power of the man who can walk away, knowing that his silence will be the loudest sound in the room. Are you ready to learn the secrets of the silent king? Are you ready to turn your absence into your ultimate weapon? Then listen closely, for the silence has much to teach you. The world is a stage, and we are all actors desperate for the spotlight. We clamor for attention, for validation, for the applause of the crowd. We believe that our power is in our performance, in the lines we speak, in the grand gestures we make. But the true king is not the one who shouts his commands from the throne. The true king is the one whose silence can bring an entire court to a standstill. He is the one whose absence is a weight, a palpable force that shifts the balance of power. He understands that true influence is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but about being the voice that is most eagerly awaited. Think of the man who speaks little, but when he does, his words carry the weight of 1,000 voices. His silence is not emptiness. It is a space he commands. It is a space where others project their own fears, their own hopes, their own insecurities. His silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the chaos of the world around him, while he remains the calm at the center of the storm. This is the first lesson of the silent king. Your silence is not a weakness. It is a canvas. And you are the artist who decides what masterpiece will be painted upon it. The journey to becoming the silent king begins with a radical act of self-possession. It begins with the understanding that your worth is not determined by the validation of others. It is not measured in likes, in shares, in the fleeting applause of the crowd. It is forged in the crucible of your own self-respect. When you no longer need the world to tell you who you are free to become who you were meant to be. You are free to move in silence, to let your actions speak for you. Your silence becomes a statement of your own sovereignty. It is a declaration that you are not for sale, that your attention is not a commodity to be bought and sold. Consider the man in a negotiation who refuses to be baited into a war of words. He listens. He observes. He allows the other party to fill the silence with their own anxieties, their own desperation. His silence is a weapon, a tool that allows him to see the cards the other person is holding before he has even played his own. He is not passive. He is a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His words, when they finally come, are not a reaction, but a calculated move in a game that he has already won. He has mastered the art of letting the world reveal itself to him, simply by being still. This is a power that cannot be taught in a classroom. It cannot be bought or sold. It must be cultivated in the solitude of your own mind. It is the power of the man who can sit with his own thoughts, who can face his own demons and emerge victorious. It is the power of the man who is not afraid to be alone, for he knows that in his solitude he is in the company of a king. The path of the silent king is not a path of isolation. It is a path of strategic withdrawal. It is the art of knowing when to engage and when to retreat, when to speak and when to let the silence do the talking. The world will try to pull you into its dramas, its endless cycles of outrage and distraction. It will demand your opinion, your reaction, your energy. The silent king knows that his energy is his most precious resource. He does not squander it on battles that do not matter. He saves it for the moments that do. Think of the artist who disappears from the world for years, only to re-emerge with a masterpiece that changes the conversation. His absence created a hunger, a longing for his work. His silence built a legend. When he finally returned, the world was not just ready to listen, it was desperate too. He did not need to shout to be heard. His work spoke for him, with a voice that was louder than any he could have mustered on his own. This is the power of strategic absence. It is the ability to create a vacuum that only you can fill. When you are constantly available, constantly present, you become a commodity. You become part of the noise. But when you are scarce, when your presence is a gift, you become a treasure. Your absence teaches the world your worth. It teaches them to appreciate you, to seek you out, to value the moments they have with you. Are you constantly available? Do you answer every call, every text, every demand on your time? Do you feel a sense of panic when you are not connected, when you are not in the loop? This is the cage the world has built for you, a cage of constant stimulation, of endless distraction. The silent king knows that to be truly powerful, you must be the master of your own attention. You must have the discipline to disconnect, to retreat into your own world, to cultivate your own thoughts. The world will not understand your silence. It will call you arrogant, aloof, detached. Let them. Their opinions are the bars of their own cages. They are the prisoners of a world that demands their constant participation. You are not. You are the king of your own kingdom, a kingdom built on the foundation of your own self-respect. The true power of the silent king is not in his silence alone. It is in the contrast between his silence and his action. When he finally moves, it is with a decisiveness and a purpose that is all the more impactful because of the stillness that preceded it. His actions are not born of impulse or reaction. They are the result of deep thought, of careful planning, of a will that has been forged in the fires of solitude. Consider the general who spends weeks in his tent, poring over maps, studying the enemy, planning his attack. His soldiers see only his silence, his absence from the daily life of the camp. They may whisper, they may doubt. But when he emerges, his plan is flawless, his orders are clear, his confidence is unshakable. His silence was not inaction. It was the gathering of a storm. And when the storm breaks, it is with a force that is unstoppable. Your actions should be like a lightning strike, a sudden, brilliant flash of power that illuminates the entire landscape. They should be the exclamation point at the end of a long, silent sentence. When you have cultivated the power of silence, your actions will have a weight, a significance that they would not have otherwise. People will pay attention because they know that you do not act lightly. They know that when you move, it is for a reason. This is the difference between the man who is always busy and the man who is always effective. The busy man is a whirlwind of activity, a constant motion that accomplishes little. The effective man is a force of nature, a silent power that moves with a purpose and achieves his goals with an almost effortless grace. He has mastered the art of doing less, but being more. Are you a man of action or a man of motion? Do you mistake movement for progress? Do you believe that the more you do, the more you are? The silent king knows that the opposite is true. The less he does, the more impactful his actions become. He is a master of the precise application of force. He does not waste his energy on 1,000 different things. He focuses it on the one thing that will make all the difference. The path of the silent king is a lonely one. It is a path that requires you to turn your back on the world, to find your strength in the solitude of your own heart. But it is not a path of weakness. It is a path of ultimate strength. For the man who can stand alone, who can find his power in his own silence, is a man who can never be broken. He is a man who is truly free. The silence of the king is not an empty void. It is a space of profound creation. It is in the stillness that he hears the whispers of his own intuition, the voice of his deepest wisdom. The world is a cacophony of opinions, of advice, of shoulds and should nots. The silent king knows that the only voice that truly matters is the one that comes from within. He cultivates his inner world with the same care that a gardener tends to his garden. He pulls the weeds of self-doubt. He waters the seeds of his ambition. He protects his dreams from the harsh winds of criticism. His mind is his sanctuary, a place where he can retreat from the chaos of the world and connect with the source of his true power. Think of the writer who isolates himself in a cabin in the woods, far from the distractions of the city. He is not running away from the world. He is running towards himself. In the silence of the forest, he can finally hear the story that has been waiting to be told. His solitude is not a punishment. It is a privilege. It is the price of admission to the world of genius. The world will try to fill your silence with its own noise. It will try to distract you with its endless stream of entertainment, its manufactured dramas, its trivial pursuits. The silent king has the discipline to resist this temptation. He knows that his greatest creations will not be born in the midst of chaos, but in the crucible of his own focused attention. Do you have a space in your life for silence? A time when you can disconnect from the world and connect with yourself? Or is your life a constant stream of noise, a relentless assault on your senses? The silent king knows that you cannot create a masterpiece if you are constantly being interrupted. You cannot hear the voice of your own soul if you are constantly listening to the voices of the crowd. Carve out a space for silence in your life. It may be an hour in the morning, a walk in nature, a few moments of meditation before you sleep. In this space, you will find the clarity, the creativity, the power that has been waiting for you all along. You will discover that your greatest strength is not in your ability to conquer the world, but in your ability to conquer yourself. The final lesson of the silent king is that his power is not for himself alone. It is a gift to the world. His silence creates a space for others to find their own voice. His absence creates an opportunity for others to step up and lead. He is not a tyrant who rules by fear, but a leader who empowers by example. When the king is silent, his court is forced to think for themselves. They are forced to take responsibility, to make decisions, to find their own strength. His silence is a test, a challenge to those around him to rise to the occasion. He is not a crutch for them to lean on, but a mirror in which they can see their own potential. Consider the mentor who does not give his student the answers, but instead asks the right questions. He creates a space of silence where the student can discover the truth for himself. He knows that a lesson learned through experience is a lesson that will never be forgotten. His silence is not a sign of indifference. It is a sign of his profound belief in the student's ability to find his own way. The silent king is not a king who hoards his power. He is a king who gives it away. He knows that his true legacy is not in the empire he builds, but in the leaders he creates. His silence is a ripple that spreads throughout his kingdom, creating a culture of self-reliance, of responsibility, of shared purpose. Are you a leader who empowers or a leader who controls? Do you give your people the space to grow, or do you suffocate them with your own ego? The silent king knows that the greatest leaders are not the ones who have all the answers, but the ones who create an environment where the answers can be found. Your silence can be a gift to those around you. It can be a space where they can find their own voice, their own strength, their own power. When you have mastered the art of the silent king, you will not just be a king of your own life. You will be a kingmaker, a man who has the power to unleash the potential in others. The journey of the silent king is a journey from the noise of the world to the silence of the soul. It is a journey of self-discovery, of self-mastery, of ultimate empowerment. It is not an easy path. It is a path that will require you to face your fears, to challenge your beliefs, to become the man you were always meant to be. But it is a path that is worth taking, for at the end of this path lies a power that is greater than any you have ever imagined, a power that cannot be taken from you, a power that will endure long after your voice has faded into silence. The choice is yours. You can continue to scream into the void, to fight for a place in a world that does not value you, or you can choose to walk the path of the silent king. You can choose to turn your absence into your ultimate power. You can choose to become the man whose silence is more powerful than 1,000 words. The world is waiting for you to make your choice, and in the silence of this moment, a new king is being born. The cell door creaked open. not with the familiar clang of iron on stone, but with a hesitant, almost reverent groan. The guard, a man whose face he had seen through the grate for a year, a face etched with the dull cruelty of a man in a cage of his own making, did not meet his eyes. "They are ready for you," he mumbled, his voice a nervous tremor in the stillness. He rose, his movements slow, deliberate, each one a testament to the coiled power within him. He had not stood to his full height in a year, and the sensation was one of both pain and liberation. He walked past the guard, his eyes fixed on the sliver of light at the end of the corridor. The guard flinched as he passed, as if his very presence was a physical force. He was led not to the interrogation room, not to the gallows, but to the throne room. The same room where they had condemned him, their faces a mask of righteous fury, their voices a chorus of betrayal. Now those same faces were turned towards him, a mixture of fear and awe in their eyes. The room was a symphony of their anxieties, a palpable tension that hung in the air like a shroud. They had expected a broken man, a shadow of the person he once was. They were not prepared for the man who stood before them now. He did not speak. He simply stood there, his gaze sweeping over them, each man a chapter in the book of his betrayal. He saw the flicker of guilt in one man's eyes, the desperate plea for mercy in another's. His silence was a judgment, a mirror that forced them to confront the ugliness of their own souls. They had stripped him of his voice, and in doing so, they had given him the power to see into their very hearts. The silence stretched, becoming a living thing, a predator in the room. It was a silence that was more damning than any accusation, more terrifying than any threat. Finally, the man who had orchestrated his downfall, the man who now sat uneasily on the throne that had once been his, could bear it no longer. "Speak," he croaked, his voice a pathetic squeak in the vastness of the silence. And then he did. His voice, unused for a year, was not a rasp, but a low, resonant hum, a sound that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth. "You have mistaken my silence for surrender," he said, his words a death knell to their fragile reign. "You have mistaken my absence for defeat. You have forgotten that the most dangerous man is the one who has nothing left to lose." He did not need to raise his voice. He did not need to threaten or cajole. His words were a statement of fact, a prophecy that they all knew in their hearts to be true. He had not come to reclaim his throne. He had come to watch their world burn, a world they had built on the ashes of their loyalty to him. And in the silence that followed his words, a new reign began. A reign not of a king who shouted his commands, but of a king whose silence was the most powerful weapon of all. This is the power that lies dormant within you, the power to command respect without demanding it, the power to influence without uttering a word, the power to turn your greatest perceived weakness into your most formidable strength. The world has taught you to be loud, to be aggressive, to be constantly in motion. But the path to true power is the path of stillness, the path of silence, the path of strategic absence. Are you ready to walk this path? Are you ready to become the master of your own silence? Then join us on this journey. Subscribe to our channel and become part of a community of men who are not afraid to be different. A community of men who are not afraid to be silent. A community of men who are destined to become kings. The world is full of noise. Be the silence that commands it. Click the link in the description to join our private community where we delve deeper into the art of the silent king. Share your own journey in the comments below. What is the one area in your life where you will begin to practice the power of silence? Your story is our story. Your ascension is our ascension. Until next time, remember, the quietest man in the room is often the most powerful. Do not be afraid of your own silence. For in that silence, you will find your throne,